Yeah, well, Hawkeyes are still alive for a chance to advance to a regional. Certainly, Iowa has an opportunity this evening, I think, to solidify its spot in the NCAA tournament. Joined by Jared Barger, and it's been a while since Jared's been on a live show or any show for that matter here. But Jared is a contributor to our news site here in Story County, storycounty.news, and he's also contributed some good um, columns in the past, some good articles on Iowa football to the website, and we've had him on the show. Jared, you're more of a baseball expert than I am, so you're going to help me out where I lack. So first of all, the bats came alive today. We realized that, and an opportunity now for Iowa to ride this momentum into the 5 p.m. slot. And I think this next game may actually start closer to 6 p.m., but it's scheduled for a 5 p.m. start. So before we get to the Iowa-Michigan matchup, I want to talk about what we saw early in this game. Lots of runners left on base. I believe the final number was 17 for the day, which is obviously a high number. What did you see early, and what happens in a baseball game like this where you're getting hits early, but you're not able to actually punch them in for runs?
Well, I'll tell you, baseball is a game of momentum, first of all. And so they had a lot of times when that happens, when you're leaving runners on, when you allow that other team to score first, a lot of times it doesn't end well. And it worked out for them. But I believe they had the bases loaded in each of the first 3 innings and did not score. And then Penn State went on to take a 1-0 lead, I believe, in the top of the third then. I could be wrong. It could have been the fourth. But a lot of times when that happens, that was after Keaton Ankeny grounded into a double play, I believe, to end the bottom of the second. A lot of times when you miss an opportunity like that, and then the other team, Penn State, takes a 1-0 lead, a lot of times they run away with that. That's just a big momentum shifter. But it worked out, and they were finally able to get some runs on the board. But they are very fortunate that they were able to continue to get those opportunities, because a lot of time when those opportunities are squandered early on and then you allow that other team to take a lead, you don't get a lot of opportunities. So they are fortunate.
And to see Iowa punch in 11 runs in a period of time stretching over just 5 innings, it kind of reflected what we saw towards the end of the year. Of course, the high scoring series, at least two-thirds of that series against Indiana late in the year, where Iowa punched in 30 runs in the one game, and then I think 12 to 14 somewhere in there in game 2. And of course, that kind of I talked about that after game 1 of the Big Ten tournament, Iowa losing to this very Penn State team would have been 2 days ago. You wonder if you kind of there's the analogy or the comparison to basketball where you make a bunch of threes in garbage time, and you almost want to save those because you feel like you're going to waste those for next game. I wonder if that kind of happened in that Indiana series where you throw up literally 40 plus runs over the course of 2 games, which is just unheard of. I mean, Iowa football really does that. So you have 40 plus runs over 2 games. You kind of come back to earth, score just two runs in a win, albeit a win against Indiana, where, again, pitching shone through. And that kind of carried over into the Big Ten tournament. Is there a substance to that? Do you see teams, of course, you're a big major league fan, but do you see teams that kind of get hot one game and it just is hard to sustain any level of strength from a hitting standpoint?
It's actually very funny you say that, because I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. And anybody that watches the Cardinals, if there's any Cardinals fans watching, that is exactly what they do. Anytime that they have an offensive explosion and they score 8, 9, 10 runs, the next game you can count on them scoring less than 3 every time. So yes, there is some substance to that. I think in the college game it's a little different. Obviously, the hitting is going to be much better. The pitching is not major league level by any means. But yes, there is some substance to that. Any way you can get a win in baseball is good. I mean, you're not going to look at a 2-1 victory and say, "Oh, we should have scored more." A win is a win. But yes, when you score a lot of runs in one game, sometimes the next, either you can keep it going or the offense kind of goes stagnant.
And our line is open. I'm going to leave the call-in line open here for the next 20 minutes or so, however long we're on. and I do want to talk Michigan, but let's kind of run through. We're waiting let's get to our chat first. I know we've got a few people in here. Ferris is here. Good to see you, Ferris. Ben, go Hawks. Excited about the victory today. Ed Rogers, momentum is only as good as your starting pitcher. Truer words have not been spoken. And Iowa's pitching has been really good throughout this entire series. So let's just acknowledge that first. Let's get to our first phone call here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hello, Corey. It's the real MVP. How you doing?
Good, the real MVP. I didn't know you were a baseball fan, sir.
Well, I haven't been watching much baseball because my team ended up as a 12 seed, but we've been winning games and we're firmly on the bubble, so I've been trying to keep up with it the past few weeks.
Wait, hold on a second. Enlighten me because, again, I'm not a big of a college baseball guy as maybe most people who are watching this. So you're telling me that Kentucky's a 12 seed in the SEC and they're already a lock for the tournament? How does that work?
No, we are not. We are on the bubble. We are on the first 4 out.
But they're a 12 seed in the they were a 12. Did they even make the SEC tournament?
Yeah, it's a 12 seed. We're playing right now against LSU. We've won 2 games.
So do all teams in the SEC, again, you're going to have to fill me in. Do all teams in the SEC make the conference tournament?
No.
So who doesn't? 13 and 14?
Yeah.
And yet Kentucky's still got a chance to get into the tournament. They're on the bubble as a 12 seed. Iowa's the 3 seed in the Big Ten and on the bubble. That shows you the difference between perception between the SEC and the Big Ten in baseball.
Yeah. Alabama's the last team in, and they're the 11th seed.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Yeah.
Did you get any of the Iowa game in?
Oh, yeah. Iowa completely dominated Penn State as they should. I mean, their bats were completely on fire today. The only concern I have about having that type is can they keep it up for the next game, especially with it being so short of a time frame.
True. And I kind of alluded to that. I just don't know. Now, Jared, you kind of said the opposite, though, to me earlier, and as I was texting you during the game, that you actually think this is an opportunity because they played during the same day, perhaps an opportunity to let the strong hitting carry over, although I would guess there's a huge difference between riding momentum from one day to the next and riding it later into the same day. Fatigue's obviously more of a factor. Just your thoughts on being able to ride this momentum, Jared.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. A lot of times from day to day, it's hard to keep it going, but they're feeling good now. And, they've just got a few hours, 4 or 5 hours till they're going to play again. So keep it going. I mean, they just need to almost pretend like it's the same game. Of course it's not, but just don't do anything different. Just keep staying on the pitches that you can hit. And I like how they're just doing what they can with the pitches they're getting. They're putting the ball in places where they can just putting the ball in play and good things happen.
And let's remember too, Iowa's playing a Michigan team. We'll talk about it, but they're playing a Michigan team who has been hot with the bats. I believe, I don't have the number in front of me. I believe they scored 11, 12 runs yesterday. And those games, by the way, these last 2 nights have ended really late for Michigan. So fatigue, they're basically playing the same day as well. They finished, I think, around 1:30 or 2 last night. I know they finished at like 2:30 a.m. the night before. I don't know why the Big Ten can't figure out a way to schedule these games better. Maybe make a game start at 8 o'clock. I know you're gonna have extra innings and whatnot. I get that, but Michigan maybe some fatigue carrying over into this 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. game as well.
Yeah, Corey, we've got the same problem over here in the SEC. So it's not just a Big Ten problem. This is a college baseball problem in general. Like my Cats, we finished our game at 1:30, and then we had to play at 1 the next day. It's insane.
And I just want to address this comment from Ed. He says, is this your favorite shirt? So this is probably my favorite shirt, Ed. I do wear this shirt quite a bit on this show. 2 reasons why I wore it today. A, Penn State, I wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out because they got beat pretty badly today, and they're all of a sudden out of the tournament. So I figured I'd wear the white and blue, and I knew our good friend Darrell MVP would be calling in, and of course he's a Kentucky fan, so I figured I'd throw him a bone. Go ahead, Darrell MVP.
Thank you. Well, based on what I saw from the season series against Michigan, it looked like Iowa was able to find something against Michigan. Do you think how do they look up tape of their old games to watch before they play? Do they do prep the night before just in case they win? How does that work? for a baseball perspective because these games are so tightly packed together.
That's a good question. I'd have to look back at the season series, but Jared, you probably have a perspective of this from maybe even a major league standpoint. When you're playing, and I think it's rare, I think we can agree it's rare that you play 2 games in one day. But of course, in a tournament setting and you lose, this is where Iowa's at now. You're forced to play 2 games in one day on a Saturday. But how much is there, comparing to football and basketball, where certainly you look back at prior matchups, how much of that goes on in baseball?
Well, as far as scouting is concerned, when you're facing elimination, you're not thinking about the next opponent. You're thinking 100% about. So I don't think there was a whole lot of focus on Michigan yesterday. I think coming into today, I think the focus was 100% on Penn State. But when it comes to scouting and preparing and the difference between other sports, you can't really just look at what did we do against them last time. You really just look at that starting pitcher in particular, and you're looking at that pitcher's metrics and what pitches do they throw and how do we match up against those pitches. So I'm not sure who, in college baseball, it's different. Guys get thrown into starting roles, especially when you're in this tournament where you're playing so many games. But whoever that starting pitcher is, that's who they're going to be looking at the most. And if they've faced him before, then yes, they'll be looking at that film quite a bit. But otherwise, I don't think you're looking back at those past matchups as much as you might in football or basketball.
And I will say this, Michigan has scored in double figures both games so far played this week. Iowa, of course, finally got the bats going today. In the season series against Michigan, Iowa winning that. They actually had a game postponed, ended up winning that series 2-1. Had one game, though, where the bats didn't show up. They scored a goose egg. And so Iowa has an opportunity to put up I think my guess is, I know it's 2 games in one day in Michigan with a short turnaround as well, Drill MVP. My guess is we're going to see a higher scoring affair, and I could be way off. Right, it'd be a 3-2 game, but I would not be surprised to see, two teams reach close to double figures. And if that happens, I think Iowa has a shot. Michigan's putting up points, but Iowa has proven they can win in high scoring affairs. We've seen that recently.
Yeah, I think one of the keys for Iowa that hasn't been discussed is their depth. How's their pitcher depth? Because playing 2 games in one day, it's got to be exhausting for the players, especially for the bullpen.
Absolutely. And, obviously Iowa has had strong pitching throughout the year. I thought Llewellyn came in and pitched really well. I guess I'd probably ask you about his performance, Jared, but Iowa's pitched well all week. Obviously Mazer, that's something I want to get to as well. Is there any chance, now maybe this is crazy, maybe you can enlighten me, Jared, but is there any chance that Adam Mazer can play tomorrow? Big Ten pitcher of the year. He of course started against Penn State 2 days ago. Is that too short of a turnaround? But it's a valid question, Drill MVP. How does pitching bounce back later in the same day? That's obviously got to be strategically planned. Iowa knew that if they won this game today, that they were going to have to play later in the day.
Well, Corey, I think that's all I got for you. Good luck during your next game today. Do you plan on doing a separate live stream for that game, or?
I plan on doing it. Yes, I do. I promised the people who are on here to do it. We got 21 people watching now. I'm thankful to all of you who are watching. I'm not a huge baseball guy, and so I brought my my sidekick here, Jared, to help me out. So I plan on being on later. I don't know if Jared will call in, but we'll definitely do a live show later. That's the plan.
Well, thank you, Corey, for doing this, and thank you, Jared, for hopping on and educating us about baseball.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the call. And, good stuff. We got conference tournaments going on all across the country. It's a great weekend to be a college baseball fan. Rott is here. He says, Iowa sports have been great this year. Great football, men's basketball, women's basketball, wrestling, and now baseball. And for anybody who wonders how Gary Barta, I know there are a lot of people who are upset at Gary Barta as the AD for some of his blunders. I can tell you this. That's why he's still employed at Iowa. Yes, he's a great fundraiser. Everyone wants to talk about that, but there's lots of guys who could fundraise at Iowa. Iowa sports has been very good here of late. We're talking about the dominance that we've seen from track and field. Basically every sport but volleyball. Softball's on an upward trend. We know the sports that Rott mentions here. No, it's been a very nice stretch for Iowa athletics, whether you want to give credit to Gary Barta or not. I think he deserves a degree of it. It may be a small degree, but a degree of credit. I think Iowa's really struck lightning in a bottle with Rick Heller as head coach here. Certainly Joey Woody, track and field. I like Fran. I like Kirk. I like Tom Brands, Terry Brands, all of them at wrestling. And so this has been a good stretch. Absolutely true here from Rott. And Iowa has an opportunity. You win today. I think you're secure. I know you're not a bracketologist as it relates to college baseball, Jared, but I think Iowa has an opportunity. They win tonight. Even if you don't win the tournament tomorrow, I think they're probably in at this point. Line is back open. I will throw the number back up here. 515-635-1601. And the real Hayden, what time is first pitch for our second game today? It should be 5 p.m. Central Time, but given the fact that this game ended almost an hour later than anticipated, probably closer to 45 minutes later than anticipated, my guess is, because you got a game going on in just a few minutes, I don't believe first pitch has been thrown. That game will likely last 3.5 hours. You may be looking at a 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time start for Game 2. And Robert, hopefully that answers your questions. I do want to get to the bracket here in a second, but before we do that, let's kind of give people a recap of this game. And I did finally, we were blessed with a box score today, so that's wonderful. Jared kind of alluded to it, the slow start, Iowa loading up bases early and unable to capitalize. Seegers singles up the middle to in the bottom of the fourth. Huckstorf scores bottom of the fourth, single for Mulfer. And Williams advances to third. Keaton Anthony scores, and really the bats started coming alive then. Iowa ends up punching in 4 runs in the fourth inning, and that really launched them into the fifth and the sixth inning where they scored 5 runs combined, Jared.
Mm-hmm. There's a saying in baseball, keep the line moving, and that's what they were able to do in that fourth inning. Just that's good baseball. I mean, it's fun when guys are jacking home runs, of course, but just get on base any way possible, and then when the whole lineup is functioning like that, and I think 6 or 7 of the starting hitters had at least one hit today. So when you can just keep the line moving, find a way to get on base, and that's what they were able to do. And they put up a lot of runs, but again, 17 left on base, no matter how you look at it, that's something that they might want to clean up.
And how about Seegers? Everybody's talking about Keaton Anthony, of course, freshman of the year, but I thought Seegers played really well. And boy, he's been a blessing at shortstop for Iowa. And you can just tell he's come into his own at that position. And thought he played offensively was great today.
Well, he's 4 for 6, and he could have been 5 for 6. In the bottom of the 8th, he hit an absolute rocket line shot up the middle, and it was a really good sliding catch by the Penn State center fielder. So he could have had 5 hits today. So yeah, it starts at the top. And when you have a leadoff guy that kind of, as he goes, the team goes, that's a big advantage.
And as far as pitching, Langenberg lasts just over 5 innings. How did you think he pitched today? I thought he was really good, and Iowa really hasn't had any real struggles pitching this tournament. You wonder if possibly this evening they're going to run into some problems against a highly volatile offense in Michigan.
Well, he did a good job. He threw 112 pitches today, which is a lot. So he is certainly off limits for the rest of the tournament. I mean, I don't see a situation where he'd be pitching tomorrow if they make it, and certainly not today. But yes, he threw a lot of pitches, gave them some good work. And then as far as the rest of the bullpen goes, I would have liked to have seen a lot more first pitch strikes. I think there were some problems walking some guys, and even though they won, they could have been a lot more efficient at getting some of the outs, and it would have made it a little easier for them later on today. But anybody and everybody is still technically available tonight, and so we'll just have to see how they play that.
And I think Isaiah Fallard has just been really good all tournament for the most part. As it relates to pitching specifically, Langenberg, you mentioned the 112 total pitches. you're obviously getting behind on counts, right? As a pitcher, how much of that is skill to be able to climb out? Because the numbers don't really reflect. I mean, Iowa gives up. Langenberg gives up 3 hits, so the numbers don't really reflect that. How is that? How much of that is just a skill set and a knack for being able to play your way from counts that don't start out your way?
Well, he gave up 3 hits, but he did walk 4. But yeah, as far as getting out of those counts, just you want to be 0-1. That's the first pitch is so important, and so it just kind of changes the mindset of the hitter once you get to 1-0. Not always, but if you get that first pitch strike, you got a lot more momentum in the at bat, and now with the whole, at least in the MLB, with the StatCast era and the metrics and looking at all those analytics, the averages do go down considerably when the count is 0-1 as opposed to 1-0. And then once you get to 2-0, that's a place you don't want to be. You want to avoid 2-0 because then after that, the hitter is just kind of more locked in to what you're throwing, especially if you're missing badly. He's probably not going to chase a pitch after you get to 2-0. So you're going to have to throw him one in the zone. And then that's where a lot of times there's mistakes made. And then you end up giving up a hit or a home run even on some of those 2 and 3 ball counts. So when you're able to establish first pitch strikes and just go at them earlier, then you're able to maybe get those chase swings later on in the at bat. So you don't have to throw them really good pitches to hit.
Good stuff from Jared. And I do see some questions here in the chat about the bracket and about Michigan. So let me go ahead and pull this up so that everybody can see where Iowa stands right now, because I don't know that tonight's a must win. I think they've got a shot at working their way into the field by losing tonight. But certainly you want to win tonight to really feel good about your chances. So here is the bracket. And hopefully everybody can see this. So, of course, this is before the Iowa win over Penn State. The loser of that game is done. All right, so Penn State losing to Rutgers yesterday, losing to Iowa today. So they're done. Iowa now moves to the bottom half of this bracket. Hopefully you can see my cursor. Maybe you cannot. Can you see it, Jared?
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, so they're down here. So they'll be here. They're part of Game 11, which I know it says 40 minutes post Game 10. This is Game 10 right here, right? So Maryland should be starting now if they haven't already done so. They'll play Indiana. Maryland with a surprise loss to Michigan last night. And Iowa, you could argue, caught a break by Maryland, the top seed, losing to Michigan, although Michigan's hot right now. But Iowa now will move down here. You win this game, you see Iowa will move on here. And so you can see the bracket. Somebody commented yesterday how confusing the bracket is. It's not that confusing, but I understand why someone may feel that it is. But the point is Iowa will move here, which, again, eventually will be here. So if that makes sense, hopefully I'm explaining that correctly. I know it's kind of confusing. But Michigan is the 5 seed, Iowa the 3 seed, as you can tell. And this is the kind of the route you have to take when you lose game 1. You kind of are forced to win a bunch of games during a short period of time. And so obviously, ideally, you'd like to just take care of business early and not have to deal with it. But that's the look at the bracket. And again, Maryland, Indiana starting here at any moment on BTN. So again, I'm going to get this podcast for Spotify, Anchor, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll try to get this up right away. That way, if anybody's missing this broadcast, they can catch it. And again, right now, I've not seen any updates from Iowa baseball. I think it's just a wait and see thing as far as the schedule. But you're looking sometime between 5 and 6, I think. Of course, the game goes extras. You could be looking at later, but they got to get these games in. So Iowa will be playing this evening. Iowa, Michigan. And I'm missing anything, Jared, that you wanted to add from your notes or observations from today?
Really, it was just once they got on the board, it was good that they were able to keep adding on. That's the big thing I saw, because Penn State, to get to this game, they had quite a 9th inning comeback against Rutgers, I believe. But anyway, yeah, they don't quit. nobody's going to be quitting, especially when you're facing elimination. So I think it was very important that they kept tacking on runs. And overall, they just played a pretty solid, complete game. I would have cleaned up, again, throwing some more first pitch strikes would have been nice. Kind of attacking the hitters a little bit more, but it was a lot of fun seeing Peyton Williams being able to put the cherry on top in the 8th, the slugger hitting a home run out to right, which kind of at that point it was okay. We can relax. I think we got this 11-3, but
yeah, it kind of felt like just the snowball effect for Penn State. Once you hit the 5th, 6th innings, I mean, it was just kind of like a freight train. You can't stop.
Yeah, well, and then they were down 7-1, and then they made it 7-3. So that's kind of where I'm talking about with the adding on. At that point, they were down 4 last night and came back. So that's kind of where you just got to keep adding on, and that's what the broadcasters made that point as well. That was the key for them, is just to keep scoring runs, keep the pressure on.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. I believe I got through all the comments. So Iowa, Michigan, 5 p.m., folks, or later. This should say approximately. Iowa, Michigan, approximately 5. At the earliest, it will be 5 p.m. Central Time. I suppose if a team withdrew, it could still be 5 p.m. But I don't see them racing through 9 innings, any of these games racing through 9 innings that quickly. So Iowa, this is technically, I guess, still the 3rd round. If you look at the bracket, this is the 3rd round. They're still trying to play their way out of the losers bracket. But they win today. You got an excellent shot. And then, of course, they'll have an opportunity to win the whole darn thing, because they'll move on to, game. I'm trying to work my way around the bracket. They'll beat Michigan, and they would play the winner of game 12, game 14, I believe. I'm looking at this correctly. Again, this bracket, I should have tried to hash this out before we went live, but we'll be here regardless. We'll get this hashed out, and then at this evening, I'll be here taking your chats, taking your comments live following Iowa, the Hawkeyes, and the Wolverines. That game will be shown on BTN. Jared Barger here with us. Appreciate the time, Jared, and your expertise in the game of baseball, and go Hawks this evening.
Yeah, let's go Hawks. Let's do it.